All right, everyone, it's time to talk about a pair of polls from the state of Iowa. I was going to say the nation of Iowa. That might happen in a balkanized future, I suppose. We've got to talk about Pete Buttigieg. Now, I have consistently said for months he is the viable candidate the Dems can field. If they field Biden, they lose. He's too incoherent. He's incapable of debating. He would get crushed by Trump just verbally. Warren has too much baggage. She's considered less electable. At least some slim minority of voters that back the more moderate candidates would not back her because of the fact that she's basically a socialist. Bernie Sanders is a self-avowed socialist. That's still a dirty word to the center left. I don't believe he can win. Also, he's geriatric. He's had health issues. Buttigieg is younger. He comes with inexperience, but as we've seen from Obama and certain others recently, even Trump himself, inexperience isn't necessarily a bad thing when you're running for the presidency. We've had people in that position before of doing shitty jobs that have had little experience. We've had people that have done good jobs that have had little experience, and vice versa. There are people who have been in politics 30 years that get into the presidency, they're total wash. There are other people that get into the presidency after that length of time, and they do just fine. So I don't think that's a total write-off for Pete Buttigieg. Kamala having had her hard peak, arguably Warren has as well. She was considerably higher up than she is now. I think she's getting down to the point where she might fall behind Sanders again, which I think is a good thing for this country. If you're going to vote for socialism, at least vote for the dude who's honest enough to call himself that. Don't bother taking the person who took 90% of his platform, call it progressivism, which is to say socialism in her case, and won't even fulfill it because she's just nuts. She's a neoliberal. She's not going to deliver any of those promises. If you're crazy enough to, like Cenk, when he says, "Oh, Elizabeth Warren's a pretty good person," you're nuts, dude. I hope that the voters in California punish you by refusing to elect you. He's running for office, I guess, for Katie Hill's old seat. They should find somebody more qualified who's not a total wash and a total sellout. We can look at these polls, though. These two polls in Iowa. Buttigieg has risen. He's third place, fairly close in one poll. He's in first place by a limited amount in the other. He's clearly moved considerably further ahead than he has been before. This is very good news for him, but keep in mind what Iowa represents. It is whiter and considerably more rural than the general Dem primary population. Don't even think about the general. Don't even bother with that. You have to win the primaries to even go into the general. Think about the Dem primaries and the voters that'll be in Iowa on primary day. They are skewed compared to a lot of the other races. Can Buttigieg compete in South Carolina? We have yet to see him be viable there. Can he compete in New Hampshire? Maybe. But this is Sanders' territory, and if Sanders, according to one of these polls, is actually the one in first place in Iowa, Sanders could win narrowly in Iowa, slam it out of the park in New Hampshire, move on to South Carolina, at least pick up some delegates there, and he would be the one that looks inevitable at that point. At some point, if he doesn't do very well in at least a couple of the starting states, Biden will have to drop out. By the way, if this happens, this shakes up everything else in the race. Who absorbs those votes? It could be Buttigieg. It could be that the other voters that are back behind Biden say, well, Sanders is a socialist, I can't back him. Warren, she's a progressive, is the same thing, and by the way, she scares me because she's a chronic liar. I don't think she's electable. Buttigieg is worth a shot. He's worth a gamble. What I would advise Dem voters is this. You should nominate Buttigieg. If he is running a sane campaign, go ahead and vote for him. I mean, a Democrat partisan and never Trump or whatever, well, I guess he's your man. If not, if the DNC forces him to be corrupted, just refuse to vote, let Trump get reelected, and let the whole party collapse. And then they'll blame Buttigieg. They're not going to blame the Democrat party at large. They're not going to blame the far left. They're going to blame the candidate, which is always what happens. They lack reflection. They didn't reflect upon this with Hillary either. So here's what I would say. We cannot say, though, I'm skeptical about whether he's actually in first. One poll from the Des Moines Register is not the truth. That is one data point. I want at least 3 or 4 more polls in a fairly short span of time before I say, yes, indeed, he's on top. But he's near the top. He's probably in the top 3. You got these 2 data points. They're strong enough to derive the conclusion that he's surged ahead to some degree. He's certainly ahead of Kamala. He's probably ahead of Warren. He's probably up there with Biden and Sanders. That's a really great place to be, by the way, because supposedly he's in a distant fourth. If he outcompetes in Iowa, at the very least, this gives him a few delegates. It gives him a state. It gives him enough staying power to at least stay in through Super Tuesday. He will have enough of a name in the race so that he can be a kingmaker. There's literally no reason. If he comes even in the top 3 in Iowa, there will be no reason to drop out until after Super Tuesday. The Democrats are insane if they don't nominate him. I am telling you, based on my political expertise, based on my understanding of political paradigms and political history, Buttigieg has the fewest weaknesses of the top of the field. The problem with the others in the field is they've never been in the top. None of the other candidates outside of that top 5, where Kamala has fallen out of grace, nobody else has ever been viable. Yang is not going to be your nominee. Tulsi Gabbard, for all of the strength she indeed does have, is not going to be nominated. Julian Castro, who I initially said he was potentially electable, he decided to flub it. He went full Beto O'Rourke. Beto was never electable. Gillibrand dropped out early. I think that was a mistake. She never gained traction because the DNC didn't take her seriously. They play a dangerous game in treating Buttigieg the way they treated Gillibrand. When Trump came out and said she was the one that he was really scared of, he was not joking. Fellow New Yorker, has the finesse, has the potential charisma, looks decent for the cameras, is capable of delivering an untelepromptered speech and not making a fool of herself. You think that Donald Trump is afraid of Amy Klobuchar, Andrew Yang, and Cory Booker? Do you think he's afraid of Kamala Harris? And I say this from this perspective. I am an independent voter. My inclination right now is to back Trump because I have seen nobody in the Dem field distinguish themselves and become viable that is truly capable, number 1, of winning, and number 2, avoiding the social justice warriors to the point where they become unelectable anyway. That's what I'm missing from the Dem field. Buttigieg is literally the only chance I think at this point the Dems have, lest a dark horse candidate jump into the race suddenly who's, not Bloomberg or Hillary Clinton or some other goofball corporatist. Barring that, he may be the only way that could even potentially earn my vote. And even then it would be a hard sell because I'm looking at the Trump economy, I'm looking at the things that matter to me in my day-to-day life and saying I am inclined to give him generally positive ratings. This is what it boils down to. And a lot of people vote with their wallet. If their job or their fiscal life has improved demonstrably in the last couple of years, they will tend to be a Trump voter, even if they tend to be at large a Democrat. Even if they tend at large to be more liberal, they will ignore that based on their job, based on their 401k, based on other things. The idea that the Democrats offering free health care for illegals, the abolition of the border, heavy-handed gun control, and free cosmetic surgery for transgendered kids, the idea that that builds a voting bloc capable of winning a general election is a sham. It's simply not true. Many of the candidates went far left to outmaneuver each other in hopes of winning the primaries. The problem is that it's impossible for them to ever move back to the center for the general. This is like a sort of dance that everyone does. They take a few steps to the left and a step to the right before the general, and the Republicans sort of do a duet with them, and they move further to the right to get more votes in the primaries, to get elected. In some of the evangelical states, they have to pretend to Jesus everything like Ted Cruz did, and then they step back. Trump, by the way, one of the few who never bothered to do this. He just acted himself. Mainly because he was sort of already in the sweet spot in a packed field. The problem is the packed field right now in the Democratic Party isn't leading to a sweet spot opening up for a viable candidate. Because the sweet spot for the primaries is far, far, far left. It's Bernie Sanders is basically in the sweet spot for the primaries. Well, that's not going to sell in the general election. What are you going to have? Bernie Sanders whips people up into a frenzy, gets nominated, and says, oh, by the way, I'm not going to do socialism. I've seen the light of neoliberalism now. I'm just going to be a progressive like Elizabeth Warren. That's not going to work. All those college kids, they'll burn their Bernie t-shirts, trust me. It'll be a free-for-all. Buttigieg, though, he's got a little bit of the Jesus. He's gay, but he's not constantly talking about it. He's kind of young, a little bit inexperienced, but he has been a mayor. At the very least, got a little bit of kind of executive experience. He is charismatic. He is one of the best speakers in your field. You are insane not to nominate him. These data points show at least some people in Iowa have woken up to that fact. I would say to them, he's definitely the best bet that the Democrats have. Some people say, by the way, oh, don't interrupt your enemy when they're making mistakes. I don't feel that the Dems are an inherent enemy. I voted for Obama in 2008. My inclination to vote for Trump is nonpartisan. I've never been a Republican or a conservative. I want a Dem candidate who stands for more traditionally liberal values instead of the hogwash of the modern Democratic post-Obama situation. The paradigm post-Obama has been far, far leftism. Lots of censorship and authoritarian heavy-handedness, fiscally and otherwise. I will never vote for such a platform because I would have to be suicidal to do so. That's about all. Peace out.